Welcome to Quarter Comics, your weekly comic book reading club. Me and my friends, we get together, we share a few comic issues with each other, and then we get on the internet and we talk about it. So I'm joined by Russ and Emmanuel. Russ, how you doing this week?
I'm doing great. Another fine week and Thanksgiving, so lots
Yeah,
of free time and good eating.
full. Emmanuel, how you doing?
I am great. Great.
That's good. Actually, speaking about Thanksgiving, did you guys get the turkey and fixins this year?
No,
Yeah,
I don't celebrate Thanksgiving. I celebrate time off and
nice.
potlucks
Time
and
off and
Yes.
Thanksgiving
potlucks.
parties,
Yes.
right? If
Yeah.
someone's going to have a party and they say bring something, and I'm going to bring something because I know there'll be some sweet potato pie or something else that I like. But there was no cooking at my house
Okay.
except for reheating brought home leftovers, which, as you
Mm,
know, is glorious.
yeah, there's nothing wrong with that for sure.
As a perpetual bachelor, ever since I was 18, I would go from home to home with my friends and just do this. Just this is what they expect of me. Like they don't
Hmm.
expect me to bring anything to cook. Maybe like some drinks or something, but this this
Hmm.
is this is the way I spent Thanksgiving. This and then this afterwards.
Yeah. Well, we did the large family Thanksgiving last night, so that was fun. Um,
Nice.
Was
basically,
it really fun though?
yeah, yeah, it was some song and dance and
Oh,
everybody
nice.
everybody getting drunk and tons of food and yeah.
Elbows up.
So, all right, this week. Last week I made a promise. I made a promise that I would find an X-Men book that Emmanuel would actually like. I don't know how well that turned out. But we're going to find out. I also made the mistake of suggesting trade paperbacks or graphic novels, and that turned out to be not the best decision I've ever made in terms of my own personal time management. I don't know how well you guys how you guys got through all three trade paperbacks because it's essentially what 3 times 6 issues. So instead of the 6 issues that we normally read, it was like 18 comics.
But granted, we did know the comics earlier, and each of us had already read the comic that we presented.
Oh,
Yes?
Yeah, true. I did have to go back through and read my selection though because it's been
Me too.
probably 20 or 25 years.
Wow, you're kind of old, man.
I'm getting there.
says the one with the salt and pepper beard.
Yeah.
Mostly soft. Yeah.
So anyway, my selection this week was X-Men Avengers Blood Ties. This is basically a collection of Uncanny X-Men, Avengers, West Coast Avengers, and the regular titular X-Men title. I think there's 5 issues total, collected in one volume. It's one story arc. Russ, what did you bring to the table this week?
I brought Black Hammer. And so Black Hammer kept showing up on my radar here and there, and I passed on it. And then I was with a reading club, and somebody pitched it, and I went with it. And so here we are. It's not the big 1, 2, 3 whatever comic companies, but it's sort of a throwback to what how they were written 20 years ago, actually more than 20 years ago. Sort of, the story of it, and the art is weird, and you have to decide if you like it or not, and you'll let me know if you decide it. Uh, uh, but I do like the author. He comes out with a lot of strange things that are not in any clearly in any genre that I read. So when he comes out with something new, I tend to follow him. Black Hammer is about some golden age superheroes that are trapped on a farm somewhere, maybe with or without their powers, and not really knowing how to leave. And the story takes place uh, sort of a day in the life after they've been there for many years.
Yeah. Manuel, what did you bring to the table this week?
In a world. What? Okay. No, this is a post-apocalyptic comic book. Y, as in not WHY, Y as in the letter, the last man. The Y being the chromosome, the sex chromosome that men have. Women have just X, men have X and Y. So, Y the last man? It To tell you a little bit about it before we get in depth. One of a friend of mine back in the past who was a Stephen King's nut. Like she would read Stephen King's novels whenever they would come out. Stephen King actually claimed that this was his best read ever as far as a graphic novel. Yeah, to hear that praise from Stephen King, that sparked my interest, and it goes down in my list as well as one of the best. So, Y the last man?
All right. Do you guys have any preference on what we start with?
Nope. I'm
All right.
as you do.
All right, let's transport our brains back to the 1990s, specifically 1993. The interesting thing about Blood Ties is this was, I guess, a 30th anniversary of X-Men and Avengers, and so 1993 they decided they would do a crossover, and so that's sort of what this story arc was. I'm curious to hear Emmanuel's thoughts right off the top, because the only reason that I even picked this was to try and get him into X-Men comics again.
I I think the premise, the reason why they went into battle, is a bit too convoluted. I mean, you have the kidnapping of the. It's a lot. There are some enjoyable points. There are some enjoyable um, themes, not scenes, but yeah, posts. But overall, I would give it out of a 10. I would give it a good 6, and that's only because of nostalgia sake. Like, because is that's my childhood. But I don't know, man. I'm trying. I am still trying. The fight scene was amazing. Like the art in that and all the powers and everything, that's why it's a 6. But the dialogue, and I understand that's been the X-Men for years and years and years, the dialogue. In other comics too, to your point before on the show notes, like before, I don't know when it changed, like 2000s or something. It's been heavy with dialogue, all the comics.
Yeah, I feel like there's been a shift in recent years, maybe the
Yeah,
last decade, last 15 years, where even though like the 90s there was a very much a focus on the artist and who was drawing the book, and this and that. There's been, I feel like, less of a focus on descriptive content and dialogue, and more of a shift towards sort of subtlety. And I don't know if that's a combination of the way that writers are writing their scripts and artists are drawing the books, or if it's the market. Those are the types of books that started selling, so that was the way that people started approaching it. But yeah, this is definitely dialogue heavy.
yes,
Yeah, I guess we should probably do a little bit of the premise for everybody watching in case they haven't had a
sure.
chance to read it.
Now
Um,
poke fun at the point made no sense.
Basically, the backstory is Quicksilver, who is a mutant, gets with Crystal, who is an Inhuman and is part of the Avengers in this era. They have a child. The child is named Luna. Um, the child then gets kidnapped by Fabian Cortez. Fabian Cortez is an acolyte, which is an apostle of Magneto, and he escapes to the island nation of Genosha and starts a civil war, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll add on to that and say this: in Genosha, mutants were enslaved, and now they're being killed. So it's a righteous fight. The United States government is not getting involved, so Avengers are not allowed to play. But of course, X-Men know no boundaries, even the planet Earth, and
Mhm.
so they are involved. And the fact that Quicksilver is a mutant member of the X-Men in good standing, and that this is his daughter, and that the mother of this child is a Avenger in good standing, and this is her daughter. They're sort of brought into it, and then of course there's just so much political machinations in here, all
which is
over the
why I liked
place.
it.
Yeah. Uh, uh, so since I'm already talking, I'll say this: at the time when this came out, it was great. I loved it. This is a comic book that had so much. Like you get this, and you gotta read it, you gotta look at it, you gotta read, you gotta look at it, because I can run through a comic in a minute or two,
Right.
really, right? And you can't do that in this comic. No, 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 right?
I know.
Cannot. This is a sit down for a couple of hours for this graphic novel of your life you got to give if you really trying to get into the crux of this. So my memory of X-Men is that it's always been dialogue heavy. It's always been that mess that they just have, and it's always, and you can't really. I don't have a good X-Men book in memory that wasn't really getting into the dialogue and the mutant rights and the mutant problems and all of that. You know what I mean? This was
Yeah.
always there, but they look good doing it. There's some heavy posing going
Oh
on
yeah.
here.
Oh
Even
yeah.
Nick Fury has a costume with a maskless mask.
Yeah.
Right? There's a little strip that goes over here, but all this is open, but he's still, and his hair is out, but it still goes around here and around under his chin and full on. I'm like, why do you need all? Dude, you're a spy. You're not even. What's that about, right? But of course, that was the time, right? I'm not necessarily a fan of the art. I could understand everything that was going on, but there's a lot of panels where there's not that much detail in the face. It's more about the movement of the body. You get that, right? But as far as facial detail and what you're feeling, I may give you a shadow here or something like that, but I can't read your face and get necessarily an emotion. Not, a lot of that. And there's a lot of heroes here, right? It's like 52 heroes, right? You got two X-Men teams, you got 17, two Avengers teams, you got 17 X-Men, right? You got
Yeah.
all the government people that Henry Gyrich, all that. You got Shield, right?
So many other factions as well,
Right?
and
And then
they have
and then
backstories.
yeah. So there's a lot of people. So there's no way that some of these people are not going to look alike. Come on, man. Their clothes are going to be different, but in the face, same dude. There's a lot of times when I saw a face was the same dude across I'm not. This was at the time. I didn't notice that then. I was all in then,
All
but
right.
now I'm like, for me, this art quality would not serve me now.
Mm.
Right.
So I say that to say, at the time, this was probably groundbreaking. Not groundbreaking, but certainly, the good stuff du jour. But I don't know that it holds his age as well as I would like. You have to come into this with love. You can't just come into this and say, "Ooh, colorful," right? But there's the posing is there. Dun, 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 storm. All of that is popping. Whoever planned that and scripted that out, that is there. It is guaranteed. People are looking. People in all the positions of of battle are all there,
I
right?
did do some research beforehand, well, not beforehand, but in the middle of reading when they would bring up different factions or different issues that have happened before, and I did find out that X-Men had previously went to Genosha and toppled the subjugation before, but they didn't establish like a government. They didn't help out politically. They just came in, fought, won, and then left.
Yes.
And then years later, like this is what's going on. It's still in disrepair. So that was interesting. You have to kind of do your research to build the world that's already there. So
Yeah.
And Hercules without a beard, blasphemous. Right? Can you even tell that? Is there anything about that that makes you know that's Hercules? He's just a dude. He could have been Wonder Man,
Well,
except for different color eyes. Hercules gotta have facial hair, dude. He just gotta have it, man.
so yeah, this is not only my pitch to Emmanuel to try to get him into X-Men. I figured by using an Avengers crossover book that might be easier. Doesn't sound like it, but this would also be my pitch to Kevin Feige to do a crossover with the X-Men in the MCU, and also to transition into a new generation of Avengers, because you've got a lot of analogs here that you can use to replace the characters that they've gotten rid of, or the actors that they had to get rid of.
Okay, here's my issue with that pitch. How many stars can you have in a movie? Is it 12? Ocean's 11? Ocean's 12?
How many were in Endgame, dude?
That's what I'm saying. How many? There are more here.
No,
Because that one's just, there are more here, double, maybe more here than there could have been in Endgame.
well,
And everybody really didn't get their fuzzy in Endgame the way you necessarily would.
no. Well, this is all right. So you would have to cut out some characters, right? Like Captain America.
Not U.S. Agent.
Well, yeah,
Right?
U.S.
U.S.
Agent.
Agent is my dude. Apparently, he could kick Captain America's butt now. In the current issue, he kicks Captain America in the face.
So in the MCU version of Blood Ties, U.S. Agent would replace Captain America's character. Because you can't.
I could see, and I hear U.S. Agent is going to be in the TV show. I could see that.
Yeah.
They've already cast the guy. So, however, so in other words, you're saying a lot of these people are redundant. Is that what you're telling me?
Well, yeah. I mean, Hercules is basically Thor, right? He takes
Yeah.
over for Thor. Hank Pym is he Giant Man in this?
Yes.
So as Giant Man, he's Hulk. I mean, War Machine is Iron Man. You can keep Don Cheadle. He'll keep coming back.
You got Black Knight in there.
Black Knight.
got-
Yeah.
Cool.
You also got Spider Woman, who is not,
It's not
it'll
Jessica
take too long to
Drew. It's
explain.
the other Spider Woman, I think.
Cersei.
Hawkeye.
Hawk, yeah, and then you got, every X-Men. Now, here's the thing: a real X-Men fan will not allow X-Men characters to be indistinct. You know what I mean? If you're gonna have an X-Men movie, and what are they, 10 X-Men in this? Say, right?
Yeah.
Which is 10 X-Men, right? That are all have to have their shine, right? I can't see that in a movie. I can see that in an animated series. If they let DC do it, because Marvel is tripping on the animated series front. I can see that, even though there have been some good X-Men animated series, as long as they keep the Avengers out of it. Because if you put the Avengers in there in a 30-minute format, everybody's going to say 3 words and they're going to be off screen, right?
Okay.
Right? And you talk about how long Endgame had to be in order to give everybody shine in that.
Oh my
What,
God.
3 hours?
Yeah,
right?
it's over 3 hours. It's like 3
and
hours.
so
and 5
now
minutes.
imagine all of them and 10 X-Men. Right? And and that's not
They
even
just-
counting Magneto.
They just do it in parts, man.
And if they stay true to form and do as much exposition as the comics, it's going to be a 16-hour movie.
There you go. Really? Because
I
that's what,
just plotted out Phase 8. Come on, guys. Give me some
the
credit.
entire phase. So it's really AVX 1 through 10 is the movies for Phase 8. AVX 1,
That
AVX
would
2,
work.
AVX 3,
That
AVX
would
4.
really work. And it'd be
Right.
compelling, too.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, and then it would make people have. So now you make movies episodic like serials used to be, right?
Yeah.
Right? You make that could work, and if anyone could do that, it could be Marvel. The question is, would people get fatigued? You and I, we are hardcore fans.
I'm already fatigued. I mean,
Yeah, so I think you lose something, and DC can catch up, because you know what DC does? DC, how they're winning now? I don't care about continuity. I'm just gonna make a good movie with a good story. I don't care if they're connected. The hell with it. I'll make 3 Jokers if you want. No problem. All in 3 different movies at the same time, and you will love it. Right? Just and maybe that's the way. Maybe, and because remember, Marvel they're giving up. They closed down Marvel Television, right? They closed down all the shows.
Yeah.
So now everything is going through Kevin Feige. so he can make sure they're all connected in his universe. But
Yeah.
if they have to go through him, how many can he hold in his head at one time?
I mean, I'm sure he's got a staff. He's got a staff of guys that.
Even yeah, even then, he still has to. In order for him to make decisions, you got to make a decision with a level of awareness. I'm not
True.
saying you can't have, because now you got all these movies, and we about to jump back into some animated stuff, right? Which is
Right.
and the what if, which has to be based
Oh, it's
on
gonna be
actual
great.
movies that came out, right? That's a lot for a human, because they're getting the original actors from Avengers to come
Mhm.
back and voice their roles in the what if to maintain continuity. The undertaking is massive. Now Kevin Feige is up to it to a certain extent, but you notice we're only getting 2 Marvel movies a year because you can't really count Spider-Man.
I mean, that's fine with me. I can't
I
watch more than 2 Marvel
I
movies a
need
year.
5. I need 5. 3 minimum. Don't even step into this
5.
year
One
if you don't
for-
give me 3 movies.
5.
I want
One for
I want a
each fiscal
Christmas movie.
quarter.
I want a summer movie. I want a some kind of spring because I can't wait through summer, right? And then sprinkle me a little something in between, right? Can I get a Thanksgiving movie? Why not, right? Come on, man. You don't have enough heroes? Don't tell me that's not true. I mean, look, I look, I'm a fan. Give me what I don't. If you're only going to give me 2 movies, how are you going to keep me at a hype level, right? Don't we need at least 3 movies? DC can
I would be
DC
fine with 3 movies. To be honest with you.
3 movies. I aimed at 5, so if you give me 3, I'm still good. But I'm still aiming for 5. Now 2 is not enough. 2 is not enough to sustain my love, right? Already Disney Plus has no new Marvel content except for the real heroes of Marvel, like real people who are going through that we're recognizing. Stan Lee did something like that once before. That's
Mhm.
not what I'm here for. I need to see somebody in spandex kicking butt that I read. Can I get that? Well, I gotta wait.
Okay.
Meanwhile, Harley Quinn is amazing. Okay, so I'm finished on that. Did you have anything else to add?
I figured we would do our wrap up. My own personal take on this:
Mhm.
the stuff drawn by Andy Kubert and John Romita Jr. Amazing. I love them. The stuff scripted by let's see, who do we have in terms of story? Bob Harris and Scott Lobdell. I think did a great
Yeah,
job.
all name brand people.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's a personal favorite of mine. Going back was interesting because I hadn't read it, like I said, in like 25 years. Manuel, I guess I didn't convert you. I'll try. I'll try again next
I
week.
was interested, but not to the point of actually subscribing back to X-Men being one of my favorites.
Okay. We'll get there. Eventually, we'll get there.
All right, we'll see.
I might have picked a run more like the one where Arcade captured them, and Storm was chained down, but she had to make her headdress fall, and in it there were lock picks that she used to get out. You remember that? You remember that one?
Vaguely.
Okay.
That was mid 80s, right?
Well, I mean, the '80s were the time. If you're talking when X-Men were great,
Okay.
right? We had the cartoon.
Oh,
We
yeah.
had Spider-Man and His
Love
Amazing
cartoon.
Friends. We had all of that. Because how can you even remember? It's the X-Men with the crazy dialogue or with all these words is the ones we love.
Yeah.
But how can I recommend that for me to someone who doesn't start at the same place with me, right? What's a good entry point? Maybe Excalibur in the beginning, or maybe the first X Factor. Maybe. I don't know.
I would say, maybe to help you guys out, the best X-Men character, in my opinion, is Nightcrawler. So I don't know if there's a story.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Matt will find it. Don't worry.
Well, there was a book that focused a lot on Nightcrawler.
Okay.
All right. Moving on. Russ, your comic is Black Hammer, Secret
Black
Origins.
Hammer, baby. Okay, so Black Hammer would have taken place long before the 80s. It would have probably been in the 60s if there was, it has that kind of style to it. The characters do. This is when you had a whole bunch of people who had no powers that were out in the streets fighting crime. that could only happen in the 60s, right? I don't know, maybe there weren't enough guns. I don't know, right? People just put on a mask and wore a suit and went outside and fought crime. You know what I mean? That's that style, like the Shadow without powers, or like, So
Right.
now, well, there are people with powers in this. A lot. It could easily have taken place in the Justice Society era, right? The JSA. Uh, uh, but all these characters that you know and love, and I could give you the DC names for all these characters easily, uh, uh, have been stuck on a farm and they cannot leave. One of them tried, and they've been there for years, and the Shazami girl, whatever, is actually what, 60, 70 years old,
Right.
but she's stuck in this girl's body of 9 or 12 or whatever number she is, and she's been that way and she can't change, and she can't smoke her cigarettes and all of that. So because it takes place in that time, but also has more of a real feel. The only thing missing is the profanity, you know.
There's some
Uh, uh,
profanity.
yeah, but not you know what I'm saying?
It's not
Not like
gratuitous.
not
Yeah.
enough. Not to make it real. If I've been stuck 10 years, even Batman would be cussing. Come on.
Right.
You think Batman can go that whole time and be like, fuck this. Anyway, that's why I presented it. Any of you care to share your take?
I liked it. Jeff Lemire is probably he's definitely A-list when it comes to writers.
Yeah.
You could have never convinced me that Moon Knight was a good character until after Jeff Lemire wrote it. Um, so I wasn't keen on this to begin with based on the art, but I got through it because Jeff Lemire wrote it, and that kept me into this story. Um, the way that I described it in the show notes was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles meets Third Rock from the Sun.
Mm.
And the reason that I say that is the motion picture, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles motion picture, after they get beat by the Shredder, they retreat to the farmhouse out in the country because they've got to lick their wounds and they have to train up. And, so this has that vibe, even though they're the heroes in the Black Hammer story are kept there, not of their own volition. So I had that, but then the Third Rock from the Sun, you've got, they're kind of alien in this world, and some of them more so than others, such as the Martian Manhunter analog that they have, which I really loved his story, the fact that he is actually a Martian and there are Martians that live on Mars, and they're like, no, humans need to die. Like, you need to go to the Earth and stop these people from colonizing the rest of the solar system. Yeah, overall, I thought it was good. It was enjoyable. It was a little slow. It feels like it would be a good sitcom or episodic in that regard. But yeah, I thought, you keep coming up with this stuff for us that just kind of stuff I've never read or never would have picked up. And yeah, I find that I'm broadening my horizons based on your picks. So I appreciate that.
Thanks, man. Okay, man, you'll give it to me straight.
So I enjoyed the family aspect of it. The way that the characters, I really like the fact that it's about powers. It's not necessarily about powers. It's more so about the character and the family dynamic of like the little girl that's really a woman, a grown woman, an older woman actually, and her conflict because she desires to live a life as a grown woman. She's 60 something, you said. Put myself in that character because they're emoting, they're feeling. If it's a generally unfeeling character and they're just like a robot, I can't relate. But if they're experiencing difficulty or even joy, any type of emotion where it's expressed properly, I can relate because I've experienced a number of emotions myself. So I really appreciate the story. The art, it kind of goes with it. I would have necessarily chosen that style to depict this story, but as I'm reading, I kind of get used to it. The art, I would give like maybe a 7, but then the story itself is a 10 because it's compelling. All the characters, none of the characters are throwaway characters. There could be a whole book or a whole series for each individual character, I think.
Okay, thank you. So I chose this for for the other reason also because the characters were compelling,
Mhm.
right? And so
Yeah.
I could get into it. And I really wanted to. In fact, for me, my experience with this was that I read the trade paperback, but I still don't know how to get out of this. How did this come? And I had to know. So it
Right.
compelled me to go in and find, right? And I had to do some research, like, because they ended this series, right? Like 12 issues or whatever. They ended it.
Yeah.
And they didn't give you an ending, but they ended it, right? And so I was like, but he only had funding for this. So then they wrote another series that takes place after this series that continues the story. Is Black Hammer something, something, something. You know what I mean?
Well,
And so I
there's
had to read, I had to know. See, here's the thing. The characters are so pulpy. Like,
yeah.
I don't know if it was in this one. Sherlock Frankenstein.
I don't
You
think
know about Sherlock Frankenstein?
think
Okay.
he's in the
So
first
one of
5
the
issues,
people
no.
Shazam girl used to have to fight, Zafram or whatever, was a villain named Sherlock Frankenstein,
Okay.
which just the name alone, he's like a gentleman Sherlock Holmes, but with evil powers of life over death and technology and life. And he was her nemesis, right?
Right.
And anyway, they had characters like that, and they had even what's the guy who could fight? That's all he could really do. He was sort of like the Atom, the old school Atom, right? The guy who could just fight, not the guy who could shrink. So I had to find out, why are they there? Who sent them there? How do they get back? And what is the story for each of these characters? I want to know, how did they come up? And so what happened? How did these people are so evil, but they got my money? There are series out there, Black Hammer something, 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 that take place, because this is clearly sort of a Justice Society kind of book, right?
Yeah.
And there's a series for some of these characters that you can read that tells you their story. There's a series that takes it into the future for Legion of Superheroes that would have happened from this series, right? There's a whole series of that. And then you get all these people who wouldn't be, it's like someone took all the DC toys and like, I'm renaming them, recoloring them, and changing them up to make them what I like. And then boom, here's a book. I'll agree with you. The art didn't draw me in, but I'm finding that a lot of Jeff Lemire, however you pronounce his name, a lot of his stuff doesn't get the big art treatment. He just tells good story, and maybe that's okay. Maybe it looks good to him.
Yeah,
it's
possible that he's choosing who he's working with. So
yeah, there's another one came out, Sweet Tooth, and there's some other things that came out that I've read from him. So I look for things from him, and pretty much everything that's not in Marvel or DC is weird looking. It just is. But the story is there, the characterization is there, and so I've just come to sort of accept it because I know what I'm going to get with him.
Right. Yeah.
And so if you want to know what happens to these characters, there is an ending, right? There is a definite story. You're going to have to do some, if you want to know, because I'm not going to tell you, right? But for me, it was so compelling, and that's why I brought it. It compelled me to go find out. And if you make me buy something from you that compels me to buy something else and I want it, damn it, you did it.
Right.
You sneaky bastard. You got
Either of you watched Reading Rainbow years ago?
Yeah.
It's not of my time, but I'm familiar with it. I've seen a couple of episodes.
Towards the end, they would kind of do a book review. And towards the end, they would get you enticed, and they'll be like, if you want to know more, you have to read.
Go to your local library.
Yeah, exactly. Right? It's kind of your pitch. I like it.
Yeah. Do we want to move on? Any final thoughts on Black Hammer?
No, but if you want to know. All right, no, go ahead. Emmanuel, tell us about your book.
All right. So, why The Last Man? It's a story that follows. Why The Last Man? That's why. It's a story that follows what happens after all the men die. At one point in time, life is just as we know it. Airplane pilots, just flying, two guys in the cockpit, and just life is the way it should be. But then this thing happens. They don't know if it's a disease, a bomb, a nuclear terrorist threat, whatever. But all the men die. What happens when both pilots are men? What happens when, yeah, what happens when just more than, well, not more than half, but half the population, the people that's running the show pretty much dies. You're left with a world full of women. It's really great. But then there's a twist because there is a man standing, the last man, if you will. His name is York. So his name starts with a Y. It kind of helps out with the XY chromosome. And it follows his exploits, what happens in a world full of women. And the women, some women have gone into factions and become Amazons. Just a badass group of women that
say,
for no other reason, no powers, zero powers whatsoever.
They just regress.
Yes. It's really, really good in my opinion because it's character driven. And I think before I hand it off to you guys, I think this could be a movie or television series. It just has that dynamic to where it can sustain that. So
we'll get into that for sure.
Yes.
All right. Our planes in the sky couldn't fly. Whatever you had that was electric, it just all died. And we were immediately into a Stone Age or whatever, not Stone Age, but steampunk. Then maybe that's what we go back to. I like the steampunk era. So got it. All the men die, and I didn't really get from the series why it happened so immediately to all men at the same time all over the world, unless maybe it didn't. Maybe it happened in waves, because whatever event started it, if you were in a plane over a continent somewhere else, you didn't share that same air. You know what I mean? So It's not a virus because it has to be something in the morphogenic field or some kind of thing where we're all connected, right? So that really, it didn't really get into that in the book that I could see. You know what I mean? They told a story, but it really didn't, because there is no real explanation how someone who lives somewhere without electricity on a farm somewhere with no internet, all of a sudden all men died there is the same where someone else died with a phone in their hand walking in New York. You know what I mean? And the people on the plane. That wasn't explained. That is not to say this was not a bad story. Very much a character-driven story. It showed that women have many flavors, right? Many different motivations. It's not all women are this or most women are that. Even the firefight between Republican and Democrat women, people willing to murder over that stuff. So the things that we see, there's this conversation that's out there that says that if women ran the world, it would be peaceful. But I say that evil and foulness is a human thing, not a man thing. And it's all of that violence. Everything is there as part of the human nature. And so this bore out in this story. I enjoyed it. There is supposedly a TV series in the works. Let's see.
It's happening. It's going to be starring
It's in development since 2015.
Well, so Brian K. Vaughan and Pia Guerrera, they did an interview at the New York Comic Con 2 months ago, talking about the TV series. So it is coming out. It's going to FX, I think, next year.
Yeah, FX is what I've been saying too.
So yeah, it is going to happen finally. I guess I've been working on it for the last 5 or 6 years.
And FX is short for Fox, which is short for Disney.
Yeah, I don't particularly care for Brian K. Vaughan. I think that he's an intelligent writer. He's a good writer. It's just not my cup of tea, I guess.
Yeah, but I'll agree with you. But the thing that could come out of television could be something great on its own, because it would separate itself from it. You know how Stephen King stuff, some of it lends well, some of it does not. Right?
Yeah, well, that was one of the things. That was one of the things they talked about there. Because he wrote this originally. This came out in 2002. So it was very post 9/11, and he talked about the mindset that he was in when he was writing the story, and like who York is. York is very much him in his 20s, type of deal, and how the TV series is going to be firmly rooted in 2019 going forward, and sort of the conversation and dialogue, and how things have changed in the last 20 years effectively.
Because you could say the same thing about Watchmen, right? The Watchmen is a very old book, right? And
Right.
the movie didn't survive, right? And if you don't like the book, that doesn't mean that this show, which is getting viewers who have not read any of the stuff before, right? Because it can be told in this medium,
Right.
change for this medium to be enjoyable. So my personal
That's a good point.
viewpoint is I give everything that has a comic book start, I give it I give it 3 episodes. What is that show on? What is that show about this TVPI? Who is on? Not FX. What is her name? She's played by. What is the woman Shield agent in the Avengers? What's her name? She was also in How I Met Your Mother.
I have no idea.
She was Robin, but she was Agent. I forget the name, but I know who you're talking about.
Okay, so she plays a down and out PI
Mhm.
on a show. It'll come to me, but we're into another book when it does. But on a show that is on, it's on Hulu. That's where I see it. But I went back to the comic, so I knew it was coming, and I knew it was comic based because my feeds tell me so. So I read back and went to the comic, and I read the graphic novel, which something I was considering providing to you guys for this, and I chose something else instead. And the graphic novel was great. There's no superpowers, none of that.
Mhm.
It's just a down and out PI who's been in Afghanistan and been through some mess, and has a little brother who is, what do you call that? Slow. I don't know the right word, so excuse me. And so she has to deal with that, but she's also a degenerate drunk and sexaholic, and living through her stuff from Afghanistan, having episodes, and still trying to go through it. So that interests me. But anyway, so shows could be, we can separate it from give comic books a chance. They feed the stuff we love.
Yeah, I mean, I was referring to the guy that wrote the comic. So Brian K. Vaughan also did Saga. I don't know if you guys are into Saga.
And I hear
that's one of my favorites.
I've only read the first issue, but Saga is taking the world by storm.
I can't stand that
comic. Really?
Yes.
Which is why you are not the target audience.
No, apparently not. I think it's interesting because I know, Emmanuel, this is why The Last Man is like one of your favorite comics of all time, right?
Yeah.
We've had that conversation before. Yes. And I was like, I'll check it out eventually. This is before I knew that Brian K. Vaughan did Saga and all that. Yeah, I don't know. It's okay. I mean, it's very soap opera-y. I mean, there's some action. And there's some interesting things. Like there's funny moments. Like I like when the Republicans show up to the White House, and the one woman's got the gun to the other woman's head, and then she blows her brains out, and the other woman's like, "What the hell?" And she's like, "My finger slipped. Sorry."
You murdered, and so your finger slipped.
Yeah.
I was like, and you think you want to be your party should be in charge of the nation?
Well, but I don't know. It's within the context of the book. I thought it was the kind of levity that lend itself to the post-apocalyptic world.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of interesting. I don't know. It's a curious paradigm, because what does happen, if all the men die, the Secretary of Agriculture becomes the president, because you've got to go that far down the line.
Yes.
Let me ask you this. Give me, Matt.
Yes.
Is there anything on TV that you're watching, not counting comedy or cartoons, that you sort of watch regularly? Give me an idea of some of your taste.
In terms of,
or maybe you're not watching anything regularly. What are you watching on TV or Netflix series?
I don't really. I watch documentaries and cartoons.
Okay.
That's my
thing. I for example, I don't watch sitcoms really. I feel like I got too much TV to watch, right? If I got this much time of TV to watch, and I got I got this much TV to watch, right? I got to cut some things out,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I don't do really mindless comedy. Not that I can't enjoy it, but I really only got enough time for stuff. There's a lot of TV that I kind of want to watch, but other stuff is better. Like I got to watch Watchmen before I watch that. You know what I mean? I got to
Yeah.
watch this before I watch that. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, like for example, I'm looking for a good heist show. Right? I want a TV show that's sort of Ocean's 11 on TV.
Okay.
Right? That would be great to watch. Like Mission Impossible was. Mission Impossible was a heist show in its own way on TV every week. I'm looking for that. I don't see that. For
Okay.
me, that's a big because you every week I want to guess and see if I can figure out what they're doing. Right? It's a challenge to me. Right? I like that. Right? That's one of the reasons I like a lot of British TV because they require me to actually think a little bit.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right? It's not so mindless. And you spoke before about some of this mindless stuff. That's kind of, but anyway, going back to Why the Last Man, I'm gonna watch the first 3 episodes no matter what.
I really like what would happen if you take away or add to the world. If you take away men, what happens to that world? A few issues back of the Corner Comics, which I wasn't able to be in, animosity. What happens if
Oh,
you
yeah.
introduce the element of sentience for all animals?
Mhm.
So taking something, removing an aspect or adding an aspect, shaking it up, and seeing how that globe falls, like how the snow falls on the globe. That's one of the elements that really stood out to me for Why the Last Man.
I agree. I honestly, that's one of the reasons why I read a lot more fiction than I read, because you already if I read nonfiction, I already know human beings are evil. I know, right? I already know they're depraved, right? Do I really need to see the story about a real killer, or do I need you to give me a Hannibal Lecter? Right?
Right.
Give me a Hannibal Lecter,
Okay.
right? Right? As I already know, the regular low-level killers is out there, right? I don't need to see true crime. I just look out my window, right? Show me some next-level crime, baby. You know what I mean?
Give me some false crime.
Yes,
some Dexter
give me some
shit.
crime that I can't see coming, right? Because if it was just street level crime, with Law and Order, I love Law and Order, but I especially love Law and Order: Criminal Intent because it got into the thinking in the brain of it. Criminal Intent was my Law and Order. Some people it's SVU, some people it's the OG, right? Criminal Intent was my dude because it was, it was levels into this game, right? And he was finding the levels, and he was a smart guy. And I've always liked TVs and movies where people are smart. People are smarter than the average, but they're lacking in some other way, social, whatever, right? I like to see how those people. What do you do when you have all the tools of success, but not necessarily the ability, right? You have everything you need to be amazing, and you can be amazing, but you can't seem to get the world function. Like for me, the difference between knowledge and wisdom is the ability to apply that knowledge to other situations. Right? If you know how to do this, but you're not, like some people are really good at their job, but they don't manage their home that way. Right? They're really good at managing the money at their job, but at home their money is everywhere. Right? Why is it that you're trained how to do this and you're not using this at home? So I like smart people who are really good at something and then have to sort of function through life like they're almost autistic in a way. That interests me. Like, what about a person who's a really amazing criminal, but he's still a degenerate? I want to watch that guy, right? He's like, because you know he's going to destroy himself, right? You already know it's going to happen, right? But he can do some amazing stuff while he's doing it, right? And will he escape this destruction today so that he can get through next season? I don't know, right? And but every other criminal that we've already know the story of, true crimes, cold case, all of that, you already know what it is. There's no real climax. There's no, who's going to get away with what. You don't even get really invested in the players so much because you kind of know what it is. So I want a good heist movie. I want another Hannibal show. I don't know if you watch Hannibal, that show, but it is okay. It's on Amazon if you have that. Hannibal. I'll give you one scene. There's a scene. This is Hannibal before he became Hannibal. This is Hannibal Begins, all the way through trying to get through the movies, right? First of all, Lawrence Fishburne is the FBI agent going after him. That's my dude. So that's automatically a buy-in for me, right? There's a story where he has, remember the guy, remember Silence of the Lambs, there was a guy with a messed up face?
Yes.
No,
right?
but okay.
Okay. So anyway, go back and watch Silence of the Lambs. It's great stuff. Anyway, there's a part where Hannibal, I don't know, is hypnotized him and drugs him and tells him, and so you see this guy cutting pieces off of his own face and eating it. This is on television. Right? Whoa! How manipulated can you? You know what I'm saying? And I was just like, is this shit really happening? And and so it's like 3 seasons. They're all on Amazon Prime if you're looking for it. It's great TV. It's deep. It's dark. I have never seen TV get that dark on network television ever before. And it was in your head, and it made you think. And can you be talked into crazy? Can even an intelligent and capable person be talked into crazy? Are there words, not big words? Can I put concepts in your mind to talk you into crazy? And that's scary, because think of someone with that skill who also can't take care of themselves, but the ability to talk you into crazy.
Right.
That's somebody I would follow. Anyway, sorry, there's my tangent for the day. Hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah, I guess that's we'll just about wrap it up. I mean, that's all the issues that we have. Doing the trade paperback thing,
Not again?
No, we're not going to do that next week. That was too dense for me. It was hard to get through all of the stories, and I don't know that we necessarily had anything more to talk about, even though we read more.
Agreed.
So, yeah. Although I will say that next week, my thoughts on what I'm going to bring, I'll give you a little bit. It's going to be comics from the mid 1950s. So
we going there?
Yes.
Okay, fine. I might not necessarily go there, but I will go with something that is written as if it's in that era.
Okay, that's fair. I don't know that it's necessarily going to be a theme. I'm just telling you this is what I'm getting.
Yeah, I want you to see if you're ready for it.
Well, that was also the problem that I had.
There we go. You're back.
We're back.
Yes.
We're back. Okay. So that was the other problem with doing trade paperbacks this week, was I couldn't read all the shit that I bought at the comic shop. So I'm not up on my X-Men. I don't know what's going on. I got to get back into that. But if we just do 2 more issues, then I can still read my X-Men. And
you're not supposed to ever catch up. This is an illusion. So let's just be real about this right now. You don't get to catch up. The goal is to have too much content, so you have to pick and choose and only watch stuff that actually appeals to you. And there's going to be stuff that you kind of want to see, and it will have to wait because it doesn't appeal enough.
Okay.
It's a buyer's market, baby. We can get whatever we want, how we want it. And you will never catch up in comics. You'll have to stop. And then you will have to cut your losses and then start at a new place, or you'll get the comic books back up and you'll have to give up a weekend of your time. Right. Your choice. But it's not designed to catch up. Think about it. If we were really doing comic books ever since we started and still buying them, what kind of life would we have even had? Right? Because you know how much time it takes to get in these books. I'm going to tell you, when I first started, I would ride my bike an hour to Hawthorne to go to the comic book shop there by the Hawthorne Mall. And for $5, I had a stack of books like this that I couldn't even wait to get home. I was just like forced to stop my bike and sit and read some and put them down and then ride all the way back home. And it would last me through that next week, right? I was all in. Of course, this is when there wasn't as much compelling television. Now we have compelling television. Now we have comics, let alone all the streaming services. You're not even watching stuff you're supposed to be watching, dude. Have you watched all the Star Trek, the new one?
Discovery? No.
Yeah.
We've had that conversation.
And you, as a Star Trek fan, it is your responsibility to at least watch the first, to watch a certain amount. Otherwise, you can,
I watched the first season. I
And it
don't.
didn't.
Has the second season? Is the second season done yet?
Yeah,
Okay.
season 3 is coming out soon, and the short treks are there, which is sort of 5 to 8 minute episodes that take certain characters and tell a little story, and those episodes actually fallout from those episodes actually show up. Season 2 is better.
I'll check it out.
Oh, look at you, man! You're
I'll check
so
it out.
hard, man. Like, you didn't do it the way I like, so I'm not watching any more of this shit. It's Star Trek. You've watched up until this. You've watched every single Star Trek thing there ever was, good or bad. And you know there were some dunkers in this, right?
I haven't watched it. I haven't watched the animated series. I watched like 2 episodes of that. So.
Okay, but Deep Space Nine, 100 episodes. You watched all of the main series,
Yeah.
and they weren't all good episodes.
No.
But you watched them because you were a fan. And now all of a sudden you were taking I calling you out and saying you were putting your fandom. It's like you can't be some tiny fan. I like the Lakers. It's like I love the Lakers, right? No matter
Right.
what, even though I'm not there anymore, it doesn't matter who the squad is. It doesn't even matter if I know anyone on the team. Lakers, baby. You know what I'm saying? No matter what. Ride or die. Are you an X-Men fan or not? You know what I'm saying? Or are you like, oh no, I like the New England Patriots. They've never been to New England. You know what I'm saying? Right? And it can't identify with that lifestyle, but you're gonna come up and say that's your team. No, man. Come in. Look, Star Trek, man, you have a responsibility to get in there and suffer through it, just like the people who watch all that Star Wars stuff. Right? All those Star Wars animated Clone Wars and Clone Wars 2.
The
and
difference,
all of that.
the main difference being, I don't like what they're doing. Therefore, I'm not going to support it with my wallet.
I didn't ask you to support with your wallet.
I'm just saying. So
I'm not compelling you. Look, I don't never tell you how to spend your money. Get your bootleg on. We can talk about that after this, right? But I'm saying, just watch it. You have a responsibility to watch it. I think, right?
All right.
Are you a fan or are you not? Like, if Why the Last Man came out and Emmanuel didn't watch the series, I would have umbrance with Emmanuel on that, right? I think I'd be justified.
And on that note, gentlemen, this has been episode 7 of Corner Comics. We're slowly approaching 2 digits, and we're going to get there. Until next week.